Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Andrea and I have been selling embroidered items on Etsy for almost 8 years, which is crazy to say. This channel is where I share everything I've learned about Etsy in the past and all sorts of small business, Etsy specific things for Etsy sellers and e-commerce sellers. It's a very fun place to hang out. And so yeah, that's what we talk about on this channel. So if that's you, you're in the right spot. Today specifically, we are diving into the third video in a 4-video series all about how to start an embroidery business on Etsy. All of these videos build on each other. So this video is building on the last video, which built on the first video. So make sure to go back to the very beginning and start there if you're interested in turning your embroidery hobby into an embroidery business on Etsy. This is going to be a great resource, and we have one more video in this series. Today specifically, we are going to be talking about listing setup for embroidery specific items. So I'm going to show you guys how we do it in our shop and just dive into some of the specifics on listing setup for embroidered items. Before we go any further with this video, I want to invite you guys to check out my totally free Etsy masterclass. This is for all sellers, but you will definitely see all the Etsy specific things that you are learning about in the embroidery specific videos in this masterclass. It is an excellent resource. We dive into my 3-step framework for starting a very successful Etsy shop. And so you're definitely going to want to check that out. It's a very, very good resource. It's a link in the description. It is completely free. So make sure to check that out. Like I said, this video is all about setting up your Etsy listings, which means your individual product pages or your Etsy listings, that's what they call them, specifically for embroidered items. Typically, no matter what products you choose to sell, which is what we talked about in the first video in this series, there are a lot of options that need to be set up for embroidery specific shops. So we are going to walk through everything we do in our shop for each listing. Before we start into the actual tech, I am going to share my screen with you guys and show you how we do each step of this, but I just want to give you an idea of what you might be needing to gather, the information that you might be needing to gather from each of your customers. If you have ever, like I mentioned in the first video of the series, if you are already selling stuff just to friends and family, but not on Etsy, you know that you probably need a lot of details for all the items that you're making. It's one of those things where it's like there's so many, by its nature, embroidery tends to be a pretty custom. Usually the things that you're doing are customized just because that's kind of the perk of getting something embroidered, is that it can usually be personalized. And so because of that, there's just a lot of details to gather. And I feel like over the past 7 years, we have kind of found the most efficient way to gather all the details that we need to finish an order, because if you don't get those details, it is a huge pain. So definitely want to make sure we're getting all of those details, and we're going to dive into what we need and how we get them. First things first, let's talk about what we need specifically at our shop, and I imagine it'll be pretty similar to what you'll need at your shop, pretty much no matter what you sell. So what we need specifically is the item color. And so if we are selling our embroidered wallets, we need to know what color wallet you want. If it is a sweatshirt or a clothing item or anything with a size, we need to know the item size. And then for the actual personalization or the embroidery specific details, we need to know what thread color you want, what you actually want on it. If you are doing a custom item, what text do you want? Or if you're doing an image, what the actual personalization is. And also we need to know the font. I mentioned this earlier, but if we do not get literally all of those details, the item will be delayed, which I hate shipping orders late. So I really try to get all of those details. And I feel like most of the time, it used to be early on in our business that probably 60% of our orders gave us all the details. I would say now we're up to like 90. Very rarely do we have to combo someone and ask for more details on their order, because we have kind of done everything we can to make sure that we get all of those details, which really helps during busy season. And this is kind of kind of going into next week's video, whenever you're trying to process a lot of orders at once, it's really, really helpful to not be having to send those messages like, hey, what thread color do you want? Hey, what font do you want? Hey, are you sure your initials are right? Did you spell this right? All those sorts of things. We don't want to have to be double checking those things. So we have put a lot of systems in place in order to make sure that we're getting all of those. And of course, it will depend on your business. It will depend on what you choose to sell, what items you like, what details you need from your customers. But I'm just going to share with you guys the way we do it. And yeah, I feel like it's a really efficient system that we have kind of established over the past 7 years. So that being said, I want to break this down into 2 different categories for the sake of this video. So the first category is going to be how we display the options. How do we show what thread color options, font colors, sweatshirt colors, all those sorts of things. How do we display the options? That is going to be the first category. And then the second category is how we actually collect that information. So the practical, where does the customer type in what they want? How do we collect that information? So I am going to walk you guys through that now. So moving right into how we display those options, we use Canva or Photoshop to make a thread chart. You can see it here on my screen, a chart showing all of the threads and a chart showing all of the color choices and a chart showing all of the font options. We then, as you can see, add them into the listing photo as the last 3 photos of the listing. And that is how we display those choices. I do want to go ahead and share my screen with you just so I can quickly show you guys how we actually make those thread charts, because I know that sometimes it's easy to see those and you're like, yeah, okay, I did a little bit of stalking, so I kind of know that that's how you display them, but how did you actually make that thread chart? And so I'm going to show you that now. So like I mentioned, we make these thread charts in Canva or we make them in Photoshop, but for the most part, we make them in Canva, and that is the software that I recommend. If you are not familiar, it is a totally free software. You do not need the Canva Pro. I don't even have it, as you can see. You don't need it. It's totally free, and you can just make an account, and it's basically like Photoshop that you don't have to pay for. So what you're gonna do when you go into Canva, when you want to make that thread color chart, the first thing that you're gonna need to do for the thread color, the font, or the sweatshirt is gather images of the options. So for a thread color chart, I literally just grab my threads, got my camera out and took a photo of it, and then I zoomed in, which I'm gonna show you guys in Canva, but get the photos that you need to display the information. And then you're going to come into Canva and click create a design. And I always use a custom size. I personally like it to match the same aspect ratio as my listing photos, which is 4:6, but I always feel like that is never enough. So I'm gonna do 12:8 just so it's big enough. And then you have your blank canvas for creating your color chart. I'm gonna pop over to this window just to show you guys one that's already done. You can see that it is very, very simple. All you have to do to get that is go over here to elements and type in grid. And then you pull in whichever one you need for your shop. So say we were doing one with just 4 options, I would pull this onto my workspace, kind of make it the size that I want, center it up, and then I would do that probably. I would then, of course, add the text. I'm just going to copy and paste it from the other one just because it's really easy. But the way that you add text, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is hit text and hit add text. So very simple. I'm just not, for the sake of this video not being so long, I'm not gonna show every single little tiny step. But yeah, that's how you do that. And from there, you just need to add the images in. And so this is how I do that. Just say I was listing these for sweatshirt colors. I always just get them directly from my supplier's site, and then I zoom way in. The way that you do that is by double clicking on it, and then it pops up like this, and you can just kind of rearrange it in the box to where it shows just that sweatshirt little swatch. It's pretty, it's one of those things where you just kind of make it work, you know what I mean? So I do that for each one. So I go ahead and zoom in on each color that I want to list, and then all you have to do is actually list out the names of those colors. So I just do that by selecting the text that I already have on my page, copying it, and typing in the name of the color. I usually pull these from my suppliers just for easiness sake, so that whenever we come to order, we don't have to guess like, okay, was mustard actually this color name? So I always basically do the exact same name as my suppliers. And then you just go ahead and add the text for each color. As you can see, that is really, really simple to make. It is not a complicated process. Probably your hardest ones to make are gonna be your thread charts, because usually that's just your most options. But the glory of the thread chart is that you only have to make it once for your embroidery business. You can use it for every single one of your listings, which is really rad. So coming up to the top, you just click share and then you hit download. I recommend using a JPEG because sometimes the PNGs are too big to upload to Etsy, and then you just download it and then you upload that image as an image for your listing, like you can see on ours. You can see that it's very, very simple. Making the thread color charts and all the charts is really, really simple, but a very, very good way to display all the information that your customer needs to see in order to buy a product from you. So go ahead and make your color charts. That is how we display the options. Let's move in now to how we actually collect that information from them. How do they actually tell us, after seeing all the sweatshirt colors, how do they tell us what they want? So when it comes to collecting information from our customers on their orders, we use two different sections on Etsy for actually collecting that information. We use the variation section and we use the personalization section on Etsy. And so for the variations, we typically like to gather anything about the item, so item color and the item size if it's applicable. And for the personalization section, we like to gather the font, the thread colors, and the initials. Now I'm going to show you guys how to do all that and what it looks like in real life and how we word it and all that kind of stuff. But just know that we are working with two sections, typically the variation section and the personalization section. So whenever you come into your listing, working off the same one we just used, you can go ahead and scroll down to just under the pricing section, and that is where your variation section is. So you can edit your variations by clicking edit variations, of course. One thing to note is that Etsy only allows you to have 2 variations for each product, which is why we use it for product item variations specifically, just so that we can get all the information about the item that we need to order. And then we use the personalization section for the stuff that we need from them as far as the actual details. But let's talk about this. So all you have to do is click add variation, and then you can rename your variation here. They'll give you a list to choose from. You can add the options or click create a new option. And we use this for color and size. As you can see here, you can rearrange that sort of thing. And then I'm going to show you guys how it shows up for your customer. It shows up right here. They can pick their primary color and their size right there. And we do make both of those things required. They have to fill that out in order to order it. So that is how you do your variations. Scrolling right past that is the personalization section. Obviously, you need to have it turned on over here. I'm not going to turn it off because this listing is live, so I don't want to edit it too much. And I highly recommend that if this is details that you have to have in order to ship out your product will be late if you do not get these details, which is the case for us. Do not make personalization optional. This box right here, do not click it, make it required. As you can see, the personalization section is right here underneath the variation section, and there is a little asterisk next to it, which means that we do require it. So I'm gonna show you guys how we word that. What we put in the instructions for buyers, which you guys can flip-flop and see how it actually shows up, is we just let them know that this is where they're going to put their monogramming instructions, and we type out in a very clear list exactly what we need from them. We need the name as it will appear, and we let them know that that is case sensitive. So what you type in this box is what is going to be on your tank top. We need to know the thread color, and we need to know the font number. You can see from the listing photos that we do our font numbers. We name the thread colors like this. These are the details that we need from them, and they are collected through the personalization section. And so we need those 3 things, and then we let them know that if you don't want any personalization, please type no monogram, and that is our way of making personalization not optional. So if you're like, but sometimes people don't want personalization, that's how we get around that, just because we really find that making that required makes it way easier for people to get all the information, because it shows up and they're like, okay, wait, why can't I check out? And they can see, okay, that's what I need to put in. And usually all they do is just like this. They just do that, and then they want white thread and font number 2. And that's typically how we get that. And so it's a really good way to collect all that information. I hope that was helpful. Like I said in a previous video in this series, do not stress about the tech. It is not hard at all. And so just make sure that you're not stressing about the tech One last thing I want to show you before we wrap up this video is how it actually shows up for us. So the way that this shows up for us on our screen is just like this. You can see it right here on my screen. It's very, very straightforward. You can see that we get her initials, the thread color, the font, and the sweatshirt color and size. It is a very, very efficient way to gather all of that information. So that is exactly how we collect and display all the information and all of the embroidery specific things about listings. If you are wanting a general Etsy listing video, I will link a video on how to create a listing from the very beginning. But yeah, that is how we handle the embroidery specific things about listings. So I really hope that this video is helpful as you start your embroidery business on Etsy. Like I said, this video is part of a 4-part series, so make sure to watch the last 2 and join us next week. This channel is where we talk all about Etsy, and so if that is something you're interested in, please do subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.